And now to South America, where a new development is reshaping the geopolitical landscape. Venezuela's National Assembly has formally approved a landmark cooperation treaty with Russia, deepening ties between Caracas and Moscow at a time of escalating tensions with the United States. The vote, carried by the government coalition-controlled assembly, has paved the way for closer collaboration between the two countries in crucial sectors such as energy, defense, technology, and the economy. According to Venezuela's official news agency, the agreement, formerly known as the law approving a treaty of strategic association and cooperation between Venezuela and Russia, still requires promulgation by President Nicolás Maduro before it can take full effect. The treaty itself is presented by both governments as a symbolic step, reflecting what officials in Caracas describe as the expression of the brotherhood, the expression of a different way in which the people and governments relate, the expression of the increasingly solid and persistent condition of friendship, brotherhood, and cooperation between the Russian Federation and the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. In Caracas, the debate in the National Assembly carried a tone of defiance as government lawmakers hailed the treaty as an act of sovereign decision-making and a counterweight to what they portray as persistent U.S. interference in the region. The timing of this development is significant. The approval of the treaty comes against the backdrop of heightened regional tension, especially in the southern Caribbean. Earlier in September, the United States carried out 3 strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats operating in those waters, a move Washington described as part of its ongoing efforts to combat transnational criminal networks. Yesterday, US President Donald Trump escalated his rhetoric, making it clear that his administration is weighing options to take the fight directly to drug cartels operating near and within Venezuela's borders. In remarks to reporters, Trump underscored what he sees as an ongoing security threat emanating from Venezuela. "We'll see what happens with Venezuela," he said. "Venezuela has been very dangerous with drugs and with other things. We had a lot of drugs coming in through water. We call water drugs, just a simple term. And we don't have any boats on the water. There are no boats. There are no fishing boats. There are no anything. So we hit a number of boats. You probably saw that. And since we did that, we have absolutely no drugs coming into our country via water because it was lethal. And now we'll look at cartels. We're going to look very seriously at cartels coming by land." The president's statement reflects a sharp shift in US policy rhetoric, one that has revived memories of the more interventionist strategies employed in Latin America during previous decades. Meanwhile, in Caracas, President Nicolás Maduro appeared in a distinctly symbolic setting. Wearing a red beret, a black tunic, and a ceremonial medal, the Venezuelan leader attended a solemn event at the Bolivarian Military University, where he was awarded an honorary doctorate in security studies. The ceremony, attended by the Venezuelan defense minister and senior military officials, underscored Maduro's effort to project unity between the civilian leadership and the armed forces. Following the awards ceremony, Maduro delivered what state media described as a masterclass, using the platform to launch a pointed defense of his government's policies in the face of mounting US pressure. Why is the US empire now launching its multifaceted plan against Venezuela with a worn-out false narrative? A false narrative already rejected by US public opinion itself, he asked rhetorically. He went on to single out US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, condemning what he called unfounded accusations about the Venezuelan military's role in the drug trade. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with his indecency and so-called morality, has said that Venezuelan military bases are the epicenter of drug trafficking. "As the constitutional commander-in-chief of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, I reject and repudiate Marco Rubio's statements," Maduro declared. This latest exchange of words reflects the entrenched hostility between Caracas and Washington, a relationship that has deteriorated further in recent months as the US tightened sanctions and increased military activity in the region. Maduro also warned that his government was on high alert and hinted that extraordinary measures might be taken if US aggression continued. He stated that he could declare a state of emergency to grant special powers in defense and security matters. The Venezuelan president further rejected US accusations that he leads a cartel, denouncing the $50 million reward offered by Washington for his arrest as an insult to the dignity of the Venezuelan people. At the same time, US military movements in the southern Caribbean have intensified. Reports confirm that the US has dispatched 8 warships, including a nuclear submarine, to the region. Additionally, 10 fighter jets have been sent to Puerto Rico in what analysts describe as the largest naval buildup in the Caribbean since the US invasion of Panama in December 1989. This surge in military presence has fueled speculation about Washington's next steps, with some regional observers warning that the standoff could escalate into a more direct confrontation. Meanwhile, Panama announced plans to host joint training exercises with US Marines later this month. According to Panama's Ministry of Public Security, about 50 US Marines will participate in the exercise, which is scheduled to take place in the country's dense jungle terrain from October 9th to October 29th. The ministry said the drills aim to improve capabilities, enhance interoperability, and strengthen regional security. The participating Marines are expected to arrive aboard a US military transport aircraft. For regional analysts, these developments underscore the deepening polarization in the Americas, a dynamic shaped by ideological divisions, security concerns, and the strategic calculations of both local and global powers. As one Caracas-based political analyst noted, the treaty between Venezuela and Russia is not merely a bilateral accord. It signals a shift in alignment that could embolden other regional actors to recalibrate their own relationships with major powers. Russian officials, for their part, have welcomed the treaty as an opportunity to expand Moscow's influence in Latin America, an area long dominated by US political and economic leverage. Energy cooperation is expected to be a cornerstone of the new agreement, with potential joint ventures in oil and gas exploration, as well as in technology transfer for refining and production infrastructure. Beyond the energy sector, defense cooperation between Moscow and Caracas is also set to deepen. Venezuela already operates Russian-made fighter jets and air defense systems, and military experts suggest that the new treaty could pave the way for the delivery of additional equipment, joint training programs, and possibly new forms of logistical support. For Washington, these developments pose a dilemma. On the one hand, the US continues to exert significant economic pressure on Venezuela through sanctions and restrictions aimed at curbing the Maduro government's access to global markets. On the other hand, the visible deepening of Caracas's partnership with Moscow threatens to undermine US influence in its own geopolitical backyard. The stakes are particularly high given the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, where years of economic mismanagement, political instability, and international sanctions have contributed to widespread poverty and one of the largest migration waves in Latin American history. For ordinary Venezuelans, the headlines about new treaties and military maneuvers may seem distant compared to the daily challenges of securing food, medicine, and reliable public services. Yet, as recent events have shown, the broader geopolitical struggle has very real consequences on the ground. In border regions, communities report increased tension and heightened security patrols. Fishermen along the Caribbean coast have voiced concerns about the recent US naval operations, saying the expanded patrols and stricter maritime controls have disrupted their livelihoods. Civil society groups within Venezuela have also expressed apprehension over the government's hints about a potential state of emergency, warning that such measures could be used to suppress dissent or restrict fundamental freedoms under the pretext of defending national sovereignty. As the standoff in the Caribbean continues, questions remain about the trajectory of US-Venezuela relations. Some observers argue that the heightened rhetoric from both sides is intended primarily for domestic audiences, with each leader seeking to project strength at home. Others fear that the current cycle of provocation and counter-provocation could spiral into a more direct confrontation. For now, the region is left to navigate an uncertain period marked by shifting alliances, military maneuvers, and the prospect of escalating confrontation. In this context, the treaty between Venezuela and Russia stands as more than just a diplomatic agreement. It is a statement of intent, one that underscores the growing multipolar nature of global politics and the enduring significance of the Caribbean and South American region in the broader strategic competition among major powers. As the story develops, attention will remain focused on how these tensions play out, not just in diplomatic chambers and military planning rooms, but also in the lives of ordinary citizens across the region whose futures will be shaped by decisions made in Caracas, Washington, and Moscow.